what's changing in the world of MMPs?
Yeah, I think almost everything, right? So on the UA front, it's gonna be a lot of interesting times to see the MMP actually get the modeling right, because there is some modeling happening on the UA channel side, and well, it's kind of a really big black box. So I don't know if I can trust that modeling.
How do you choose a mobile measurement partner? Is there any difference between all the different MMPs out there? And does having an MMP even matter in the age of SKAN and soon privacy sandbox on Android? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. My name, of course, is John Katsir. Today we're chatting with a very special guest. He's personally launched over 30 games. He spent over 32 million euros. He says profitably. I gotta trust him on that one. And then over the last decade has consulted with hundreds of clients on user acquisition, mobile marketing. He's the founder of 2.5 Games. He writes the brutally honest newsletter. Welcome, Matej Lancaric.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me here.
Hey, it is a great pleasure to have you. And we know, by the way, that, the half of the 2.5 Gamers podcast is behind you, has just had a snack, but may wake up and interrupt us. That's okay. This is real life. It's all good.
Very good. Yeah. That's good to hear.
Let's start. Yeah, let's start here. What does an MMP do for you historically?
Well, you need to have an MMP to be able to diversify the UA, because, so historically, there were times when the UA managers ran the campaigns on Facebook, or Google, but then that's changed quite heavily in the recent years and months. And if you want to just run the UA campaigns outside of Facebook, Google, you want to start Unity, you want to start uploading, even TikTok, you need an attribution link. So, so that's the first thing. And then obviously you need to be able to actually evaluate the different UA channels, because different UA channels, very different quality of traffic, very different retention profiles, and very different LTV curves as well. So yes, you could run UA without an MMP, but then eventually, you would be missing out on the lot of scale, diversification, different channels.
Talk about 2023. Things have changed. Things have evolved. A lot is going on in the iOS space. We know a lot is going to happen in the Android space over the next 18 months or so. How has an MMP, what we need from an MMP, changed?
Well, there's going to be the SKAN 4.0 fun stuff, which is apparently around the corner. I still don't have any any data points to support anything, but
There are
uh,
SKAN 4 postbacks coming out
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. There are, but it's very few, and it will take some
It's
time
testing.
until yeah, until the adoption rate hits some critical mass. So until that happens, I'm still leaning towards the SKAN 3.0. But I usually use an MMP and the SKAN conversion schema that I can actually set up in the MMP. And then, that helps me to run profitable campaigns on iOS. I know you mentioned profitable. You need to believe me on that, but I can actually prove that at some point. So yeah,
Excellent.
so that helps me to be able to evaluate kind of properly, or to have different reports, different dashboards, different things that actually help me to identify the first 24 hours of the player journey, and stuff like that. Also, what really is important for me is to be able to set up a conversion schema that allows you to track the IAP revenue and also ad revenue in one conversion schema. That's really like critical for me, at least, because I work with games that have in-app revenue and ads revenue, and it's sometimes it's 70-30 skewed towards in-apps, but when it's 50-50, then when the magic happens. So that's very critical for me, at least.
Interesting. The 50-50, the 70-30. Do you ever have 30-70?
Yeah, of course. I worked with different ad revenue based games before, and like that there is a very big challenge on iOS, obviously thanks to the privacy changes. And then this is exactly like how you can kind of offset those changes and help. Decide.
So historically, an MMP used the IDFA on iOS, used the GAID on Android, and boom, there you go. You could track, you could measure, you could follow devices around. You had super long cohorts, all that good stuff. That's gone on iOS. That's going away on Android. In the age of SKAN, is having an MMP more important or less important?
I think it's more important. It always so I use MMP all the time, all the fucking time, every day with the on the iOS campaigns and on the iOS measurement as well. I take the prospects, or well, not me personally, but when I work with different companies, there I work with one company specifically for LTV predictions as well. And thanks to MMP raw data, I can kind of, or they can kind of measure and model LTV prediction based on those like first 24 hours of data points. So that helps always. I can't
Hmm.
get that in those data directly from the UA channel to a certain extent.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think, yeah, people will. I get this question all the time. Do I need an MMP? What kind of MMP should I choose? What's the best for me? So it's really like a interesting question.
Well, I think that the biggest challenge when we have SKAD network, even three, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I think there's my personal guess. I'd love to hear yours. I think there's maybe a third of mobile marketers who really get SKAN, who really use it well, and who really get value out of it. Maybe a third. And we're heading into SKAN 4, which has more and more
Yeah,
data, but it's way more complex.
of course. Yeah, no, I think it's really, really complicated. And if you don't have a big data team and you're just, well, UA manager without the data, so you're all alone for all the measurements and all the fun stuff, which happens because not every company is as big size. Not every company is Rovio. Not every company is King, Supercell, whatever. They're small companies and they do well. But then, yes, you need scan reporting. You need to be able to actually understand what's going on. And it's hard. Of course,
Hmm.
of course, it's
Hmm.
hard. And
Hmm.
like 30%, maybe 30%, maybe even lower percentage is actually able to understand like what's happening. And sometimes even
Maybe.
I don't know, well, like I don't understand. Like it was like, what the fuck is happening now? Like the scan 4.0 is gonna be, well, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can tell, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so you're a special kind of person who looks at complexity and sees
Mm.
fun, so that's
Of
wonderful.
course,
Uh,
of course, I love it. iOS changes that happened, like great. I have
Good.
more work. But it requires
Job
it,
securing for consultants.
yeah, it's fine. It requires hard work to understand the player behavior in the first 24 hours, at least for the previous scan.
Hmm.
You need to be
Hmm.
able to talk to the game teams. You need to be able to convince them that why do you need those events to be actually
Hmm.
firing and sending towards the MMP, and then from MMP to UA channels. That's really, really hard. So you need to have these skills, which, well, you didn't need before. And of course, you need to evaluate. Then, if you are in the big company and you have goals on day 7, day 30, ROAS, of course. Then, well, if you can't measure properly, then you will switch the budget to
Yep.
Android where you can, and then there
Yes.
you go.
Yes.
Bonus is in your packet, and then that's fine. That's what all
And
that
that is
matters.
totally what we saw, obviously, when iOS first came out. And the interesting thing is, I just finished doing the ROI index for Singular. It's coming out
Nice.
in, I want to say, a couple weeks or so. Spend has massively shifted back. So
Yeah.
people, at least on the Singular platform, are getting scanned and using it very, very well. Now, you mentioned small teams, which are common. And people might be themselves, might be a small team, 3, 5 people or something like that. When do you need to start having an MMP? Because you can imagine a small studio, indie, they launch a game, maybe they use one ad partner to begin with or something like that. When do you bring on an MMP?
Well, I think the ideal scenario is to have an MMP during the soft launch. Well, ideally, maybe even before that, because it takes some time to actually to actually integrate, negotiate the contract, and all of the fun stuff. So when you're doing the marketability tests, then and you have all the answers, you should start implementing the SDK afterwards. So the thing is, small teams and small companies, they usually do start the UA on Google and Facebook.
Hmm.
So for these specific reasons, you don't need to have the MMP in place. But running Facebook only, it's not going to be enough. So you should be start thinking about this like in the soft launch as soon as you can.
Absolutely. And start training the models as well and getting the data out in a way that you can recognize and grow from. That makes a ton of sense. When you're looking for an MMP, what should you look for?
Well, to be honest, I'm looking at pricing always. You mentioned smaller teams, so that's really important for a lot of companies out there. Some companies just can't afford paying 25K a month for an
Hmm.
MMP.
Shocker.
Well, yeah, who would say that? So definitely looking into that. What is included in that pricing? Because some things in some MMPs are not very much included and like said up front that you need to have different packages to actually see spent. Well, that kind
Hmm.
of sucks
Hmm.
always. So I'm looking at that and try to look at the reporting abilities as well, because I really use since I'm the consultant, so I don't have any like fancy in-house dashboarding tools. I usually use whatever is in-house in that company, and sometimes there is nothing. So I need to build dashboards and reporting in the MMP. So that's why I use a lot of custom dashboards. So I'm looking into that if the MMP has this in included in the price.
Hmm.
Then, of
Hmm.
course, the SKAN conversion schema flexibility, as I mentioned, like different models supported. If I can combine in-app ads and in-app purchase revenue,
Hmm.
then what else? Yeah, I think that's kind of it. And of course, support,
Yes.
basically, because it's really important. And and I usually get this question. So, what would I choose? Like which MMP? Well,
Hmm.
honestly, I don't care. I don't really care because I'm not implementing the SDKs. So
Hmm.
I usually say, of course, implementing SDK of MMP is very easy. But I'm the UA guy, so of course everything is easy for me except the UA. But I tried to get an answer from the developers team and from the developers directly. So usually they should look at the documentation and they should make the decision, because for me everything is the same. One is in
Hmm.
green, one is in gray, one is in blue, basically.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so I shouldn't be the one who makes the decision. Developers should do it. Should do it.
What's a red flag if you're looking at MMPs, and what's a red flag to be aware of?
Yeah, well, the pricing is really like hidden costs. So you all expect something is included in the package, and then suddenly, at one day, like I mentioned, cost you don't
Overage.
spend. Yeah, like hey, come on, where is the spend? Where did it go? Oh well, we actually changed this packaging. Obviously, nobody said anything, so you need to pay 5,000 extra. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so who else I can actually implement and work with? This is
Yes.
very red flag. I think again, support is very interesting. Maybe potential red flag because some MMPs actually help with integration. That's amazing.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
So you have
Hmm.
the onboarding calls. That's great. So it's actually quite opposite of red flag, I guess. And then what else? Yeah, I think overpromise, underdeliver. That's what that's what that usually
We've
is.
never seen that
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah, of course. No, 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 no. No way, no way.
L-
That never happens.
Let's talk about change. We talked already about what's happening on iOS. We talked about what's going to be happening on Android. We're moving from an era of deterministic marketing attribution, whether that was real or not. We had deterministic last
Yeah.
touch. And we're moving towards an era of modeling. What's changing in the world of MMPs?
Yeah, I think almost everything, right? So on the UA front, it's gonna be a lot of interesting times to see the MMP actually get the modeling right, because there is some modeling happening on the UA channel side. And well, it's kind of a really big black box, so I don't know if I can trust that modeling. So that's going to be very important to actually build trust from MMP towards their
Mm-hmm.
customers,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see, like, if I'm looking at the data, to be able to see if this is actually the data I can trust and I can make
Yeah.
decision based on. That's
Yeah.
going to be very important.
Yeah. In other words, if you can have kind of, we know that the value is within this range.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
We believe it's here, but we know it's in this range. Then at least you've got some level of certainty, right? Because you know that an MP is telling you this is how certain we are,
Yeah.
and then you can make decisions based on that.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we are going to move towards, or well, we are already halfway through the times when you can't really measure everything very precisely, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
be thinking about the evaluation on your end in terms of the, like, from UA point of view. Sometimes, of course, I don't see past day one at the moment, but I can kind of use my experiences from the past, and I can, like, assume, like, what's, I guess, happening. So it's gonna be very much skewed towards the blended approach, trying to build some level prediction, some LTV predictions, and being able to run incrementality tests, which is kind of new still to some UA managers. So that's why I brought up the experience, because I did this before, and that kind of helps me now to make decisions based on, let's say, 50% of the data that I had before. So how do you make decisions based on incomplete data? That's
I think that's critical. I think that's a critical piece of the next decade of marketing measurement. I call it truthiness.
Nice.
It's maybe not truth, but it's truthy, right? And we have to be honest about these things, right? Because we talked about the past where you had deterministic marketing attribution. That didn't mean it was right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because somebody touched your ad or clicked your ad the last time didn't mean that's what was the most important factor or the only factor in making them do something, and doesn't even mean it was the most important factor for them to spend $3,000 in your game.
And as a
thing, anything like that.
It was so weird because you ran 5 different UA channels, and then you paused 3 of them because based on the last touch shows they didn't perform. But come on, you saw different ads on different UA channels, and then eventually made a decision to install the game. But was it because the Facebook of which was the last touch? You can't say that. They can't say that.
And Facebook was very eager to grab that.
Of course, yeah. The thing is, like, you only looked at the Facebook app, and immediately afterwards, whatever you've done, then it just attributed
whatever is
to
good.
it. Yeah. The attributed it to Facebook, obviously.
Google's famous for that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that's really critical over the next decade, is to embrace uncertainty. You need a certain level of certainty. You need a certain level of data. You need that. And you can get that with a lot of different signals. There's many signals. There's your own in-app signals. There's the signals you get from MMP. There's signals you get from what people are doing. And there's signals from incrementality,
Yeah.
right? Media mix modeling, market mix modeling, checking all that stuff. And I think the challenge of the next few years is for MMPs to really get that right and to give you insightful information, which is 80% accurate,
Ooh.
directionally accurate.
Yeah,
That you
directionally
can
accurate is the right word, I would say. For sure.
Mhm, mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
but things like even with SKAN and SKAN 4.0, so there's like a lot of information that's flying around. Great theory, amazing, but then we need the actual data to see what's going to happen and how that is going to change the whole iOS campaign structures, evaluation, and everything. So, but yeah, well, that's what we discuss always on the 2.5 Gamers
Yep,
podcast,
yep, yep.
daily UA fun stuff.
I do have a theory that those who figure it out, just like we've seen with Scan 3, those who figure it out, those who use tools that get them the best data
Yeah,
will do well. And it'll be interesting to see that happening.
yeah.
Awesome.
But
Cool.
one second. Well, I just one quick crazy thought because yeah, I
Crazy
have
thought. Here we go.
I have always like the crazy thoughts. So we have the 2.5 Gamers podcast, and we didn't talk about Scan 4.0. So if there is anyone from, let's say, Singular, I think Aaron would be great guest for us. He can join and talk about Scan 4.0. Like, but it's no bullshit gaming podcast, so it needs to be very, very actionable.
Iran is your man.
Yeah, Aaron.
He
Yeah,
is
Aaron.
the guy.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
It's funny. I've never seen a CTO. We're talking about Ron Friedman, who's the chief technology officer of Singular. And he's basically become customer service personnel number one. He's working with all of the brands
Yeah, that's
and saying,
perfect.
okay,
No.
here's what you need to do. Here's how it works. Here, get this data, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's that who else with technical background can answer all these fun questions as well.
Well, way to go, Matej. You're a guest on a podcast and
Nice.
using that time to get your next guest. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Matej, thank you for
Perfect.
this time. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.